Hey there, leaders, and welcome back to another episode of Leaders of B2B. Today we have a super special episode, Ledge and myself joining here to do a conversation and talking really about how to use podcasts and turn those into revenue. Particularly when you're doing podcast interviews with people and there's potential for business there. How do you tactfully turn those into business opportunities? And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. And so, Ledge, I guess, we do a lot of these. I know prior to Leaders of B2B, you did what? I think 200 of these interviews. I've done probably around 150, 200 as well on my own show before Leaders of B2B. And we both saw just the massive potential of when you are interviewing people, you're building your network, you're connecting with a lot of people. There's a lot of opportunity to do business with all those people you interview. And it's not to say that that's the sole purpose of the show, but great opportunity and value comes out of it. And, you get all the content, but you also, have the ability to turn those interviews into real business relationships. And so, I'm curious, I guess, from your perspective. I know we approach this in some different ways, which we'll talk about, but when you're doing these interviews and you're having these conversations, how do you think, or what is your kind of frame, or how you go about turning these actually into revenue producing relationships?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jake. It's good to actually get to talk to each other and record it. We do this all the time, but I don't think this is our first episode together since your podcast. So this is fun. Yeah, and I would say that I look for qualification from the guests. Now, we're trying to book guests using the same type of scenarios that we might help somebody with building their podcast. And just, is this somebody who's interesting? Is this somebody who, we might want to build a relationship with one way or another? Some of those relationships will turn out to be revenue producing. And I think we came to define revenue producing or, revenue relationship as it could be a partnership. It could be a referral relationship, and it could be a customer, somebody who you end up actually doing business with because it's mutually valuable. So that's the filtering that I go through. And then I also came to discover that this strategy works really well if you're talking to somebody who is, there's two things that I think make this really valuable for someone who might do this type of strategy for their business. And the first one is there some kind of executive to executive selling type of scenario? That really, like, it needs to be a leader to leader type of sale. Something has to happen, like that connection between two higher level people, one of whom we suggest would be the host. And the other thing, it seems to relate well to, I think this goes together, it's a high ticket items, like high ticket services. You can build any business using podcasting. And I think the revenue focused podcasting really fits best with a high ACV or high ticket sort of value, where it's sold in some way executive to executive. So that's what I look for if you and I have a guest, or on any podcast, if I have a guest where I think the services that we all sell as our businesses make sense. I will, and we talk about styles, like I'll directly mention that after the episode. I'd say, Jake, I really enjoyed this conversation today. And, hey, no hard sell. This is not why I invited you here. But if this is a vehicle that might help you, I think your business has an executive to executive selling component, and it has a high ticket value. And we know from experience that, this is a channel that works. And if you want to talk about that, awesome. And if you don't, we're still going to give you a whole bunch of free PR, and we're going to have a good time together. And we're super happy to have you, in our network. So in a sense, I think it's interesting. You and I come from you're a big marketing guy, and I'm sort of just a sales guy, and like the different views on those things. My philosophy is telling is selling, It won't make a big difference to me if someone does or doesn't do a thing, but I want to make them at least aware that it's available, and that's what that conversation's about.
Nice, I love that, and I know you've got the direct approach and kind of typically make that ask right there on the first interview or throw it out there. And I'll share kind of my approach that Sometimes I do that when it feels fitting, or if the conversation feels like it naturally goes there, and we chat a bit about what we're doing. But sometimes, like, I don't know, like I'll admit, and I know that some of our other podcast hosts are like kind of apprehensive about being that direct, and it's kind of scary a bit, But some of the other ways I'll do it is if it doesn't feel right for me to just like say like, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? This is what we do. Be happy to chat or anything. But I always like to kind of end it with like, I love what you guys are doing. Anything you ever want to collaborate, anything we can do to help, just let me know. And I might casually toss out the idea of like, hey, this is what we do. Could be interested to chat about this at some point. But if I don't, one of the other things I often look at is like, just how do I provide value after that initial interview? And really just like build a relationship. And that's where I've probably done more slow plays into deals than I've done with like the quick, fast sell. Where, example of one is like, had a guy on the guest show, really good speaker, really cool business, was growing. Thought he was like a great prospect for us. And afterward, I'm like, okay, this guy has business in, e-commerce space, doing like direct-to-consumer brands. Okay, cool. Like I know some other people in that space. And I was like, hey, I know this guy that would be like, great. And I think that's actually what I did on that initial call. I was like, hey, I know someone who might be a good connection for you. He's got a very similar customer base. Maybe you guys can partner. So I initially like make an intro there, literally meet another D2C guy, and like soon I make another introduction and stuff like that. And so that's one thing I do is often I always look like, how can I just like connect people together, make recommendations or stuff. And just like look for those value adds. I've even like, I had a marketing person on, and I told them about this really cool tool we use to promote our content and stuff. And they were just like, oh, this is awesome. Like you just made my day. Like this is amazing. And so like I look at those ways of like, I think for me often is like, how do I create value and just like give in those conversations? And then I often kind of circle back around with like an ask of, a couple weeks later of, hey, like, thought about this, interested in having a quick call to talk. And that's where I'll kind of make an ask. And that has been converting pretty well, I think, when you do like the value add on the front end, where like they at least want to hear you out because you've kind of built that relationship with them. So that's my approach, a little less direct. I don't know. You've got more closes than I do, so I can't say which way works exactly better, but maybe mine's just a slower, longer play.
I think
but that's one
tandem.
of the ways.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense, right? And like, what are you really describing? Like, how to be a good network contact, like, and that's what we're trying to do here. Like everybody that is in our, what do you call it, funnel, or you call it network? I mean, whatever it is, like, we exist here to, in all of the businesses, to really add value to others. And I think, and we're talking to a lot of founders, we're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Like, that's the idea. And I don't know that it maybe applies to every, sort of every client we have that's running their own podcast or not. But I think that's the idea, right? When you interact with somebody, you should be adding value in every possible way that you can. And there might be a really good introduction. And there might be just the fact that you're able to tag them on a bunch of posts and provide them with great content. I mean, I always say, like, just the fact that you invited somebody to do an interview is a special give. You didn't ask for anything. I mean, like, so where virtually nobody does that. Nobody has a platform that can allow those people that you're interested in adding value to, like, you already added value by having them on. And I'm amazed that every time we put something up on my LinkedIn, which is a video or a graphic or a quote or something of one of our guests on Leaders of B2B, those get way more interactions than any of the smart thought leader whatever stuff that I put out with my name on it. And that's good for everybody, right? Like, that it's super cool that we get to use our platform to build those relationships. So I'll circle that back around and say, I think all the things are necessary. Marketing, sales, it all works together. Ultimately, the long-term ones you want to come back around when they're thinking about and aware of your thing. And I like the early mention because I want to make sure that when someone thinks B2B podcast, they think about us first. And I need to make sure, at least to my mind, I want to make sure that people know here's who you're talking to and here's the thing that we do and provide. And then, everybody don't like be salesy or, it's just like, I don't think mentioning and trying to get money for the thing you do is salesy. But I can appreciate that is not a natural disposition for everybody. So time horizon may be the main issue there. At the same time, you and I both know that we encounter and have clients who want a fast turn to revenue. Well, if you aren't asking, that isn't going to happen, and you are, sort of putting yourself in the long-term nurture bucket, which is totally cool. Some of that will convert, probably at the same level, maybe more, but it ain't gonna be soon.
Yeah, and I'll share on that. One of the ones that I did not make a direct like, hey, this is what we do. Happy to chat if you ever wanted to on like a call. I actually I went super slow play on this one. It was one of my earlier ones. I was a little kind of more nervous around it, and the customer then proceeded to literally hire a vendor for exactly what we do within the 2-month period of when we had the interview to when it actually got published. Because like, I'll just wait till after like it gets like their episode goes live, and like they just hired a vendor. And I was like, damn, like I could have been in at least on like the process of like potential of that, and I didn't even make the ask. And so now I'm kind of very casually doing that ask, but I find another thing, like sometimes people are like, oh, someone doesn't engage, I followed up with them, they didn't, do anything. It's like, you don't want someone to feel like, hey, I just did this show and now like I'm just being sold. Like you don't want that feeling. Right. So you got to make it feel like natural relationship building. So another thing is like whenever the episode starts going live, that like gives you another chance to reopen the dialogue with them. Because you send them the episode, you send them all these social graphics, you start tagging them in posts on LinkedIn, or like our team actually does all that for you, and it's really cool. Like that was one of the people that that's recently come through from my side was like, hey man, I love seeing all the stuff you guys are tagging on LinkedIn. That's super cool. And like literally mentioned that when he circled back around and wanted to like hop on a call to talk. And so all of that again, it's this reciprocity thing where it's like, hey, we're giving you all this content. Cool. We're tagging you and we're promoting you on LinkedIn. We're featuring your interview. We're putting paid promotion behind this interview, all this stuff. There's just kind of this reciprocity where then people will like listen and hear you out and, build that relationship there. So I think it's something where you don't want to be like a super hard sale, but, sometimes you just got to play it a little slow, and each, there's like the interview is like a touch point. And then the publishing and the promotion are like additional touch points that are all places to re-engage that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think there's plenty of space to do all these things in an authentic way that is a mutual win-win. Like, yes, we are talking to people we want to do business with. That's okay. That's why we're all here. You don't start, it's not a hobby. And we can provide all kinds of value. We can tag people. We can promote them to our network. Like these are not mutually exclusive items. I don't think anybody should have the illusion that we aren't all doing an activity that, in fact, relates back to our livelihood. So, I just think it all goes together, and it's okay to be honest about, yes, I had you here, and I'm going to do all the things that I said I was going to do, regardless of any payback or expecting anything in return. However, if it's mutually beneficial, this is a conversation we might want to have, because I believe with everything that I have, like I'm putting time into this, I'm showing you this model that in fact makes our business a lot of money. It's a model that can also make your business, Mrs. Guest, a lot of money also. So it could be cool for you to listen to this. And if it fits, awesome. If it doesn't fit, that's cool too. We're still going to do all the things that we said. And I just think that it's my mission in life to make all those people more money. If we have a tool that makes them more money, we should tell them about it.
Yeah. I love that. Another thing I want to pivot and talk on a bit as well is this idea of using these podcast interviews to build partnerships as well. And this is something that I think I've done probably more partnerships than direct sales with most of my podcast interviews, and it's kind of where actually I focus a lot of my energy and stuff with the show. But I think there's also something to be said about just anytime you connect with someone, if there's a way for you to collaborate on content where, like if they've got a podcast as well, or they've got a webinar series and you can go be a guest on that, that can be often better than a direct sale. And, not every interview, not every show is framed around this, but, even if, you're not going after something like that, you can go after an association for the industry you're targeting. And if you can then go speak to at that association. And so there's that is one of the probably biggest benefits I've had is okay, let me think through who are the influencers, who are the people that have audiences of my ideal customer. Let me go interview them, network with them, and then figure out how I can most of the time go speak, maybe sometimes write a guest blog post for them. But I'd say the speaking, appearing on their podcast or appearing on their webinar series, if you can do those kind of relationships, that can drive some serious lead volume. And that I think is another really, really powerful way to use it. It's not always as direct, not always as quick, but those relationships can go a super long way to build those partnerships. Yeah,
and also not mutually exclusive. You should do all those things and, continue to try to push through and look for opportunities to work together. So we're just describing good marketing discipline. And I think if there's any message to take away, it's yes, do all the things. Do these things, ask these questions. And if you're not comfortable maybe asking a direct question of selling your particular service or product straight up, maybe you're more comfortable asking the question, hey, I really enjoyed this time together. Is there any way we could collaborate on content for your business? Maybe I could show up and we could do a webinar together. Do your marketing people do that? That'd be great. Oh, you already have a podcast. Great. I'd be thrilled to be a guest if you wanted to invite me to do that, have some more conversations that could benefit you. And none of those things would preclude you from later doing, other business. So by all means, use your natural charisma and gravitas to provide more value, connect in more ways. And if it increases your reach, that's great. Because I can tell you the salespeople like us down at the bottom of the funnel, we sure want more leads coming in. So your business, whoever you are listening to this, really could benefit from that partnership type of vibe as well. So again, a revenue producing relationship is a partnership, a referral, or a direct sale. And really, you'd like to have, and think about your revenue mix of a business, an ideal business that you're probably building. You want all of those channels firing because you want to balance things out. So that partnership really could work for you when your direct sales are a little slow, maybe at the end of a year or December or something. Then those referrals, if you maintain the network relationships sort of one-to-one and you continue to add value there, that's going to be great when you don't have maybe something else in the funnel. So depending on any one channel for your revenue can be not awesome. So you would like to have all these things, sort of firing for you. And that's where marketing sales, again, work together. Absolutely do it.
Yeah, I love this. So I think that's a lot of my points that I wanted to hit on with this today. But really, for me, I think it all comes down to just build a relationship and be human and make an ask. It really comes down to that of how do you provide value? How do you, send them even articles or, anything like this? Just how do you provide value? It sounds like the kind of cliche, obvious things, but they work. And if you can make introductions, send them articles, provide value of any sort, recommend something to them that they should go look at, and just show yourself as an expert, and then just combine that with making an ask. And if you deliver that on the front end, you've already delivered an interview, which is valuable. Any additional value you can deliver, and then just make an ask. And that is the biggest thing I can say that makes these things naturally go forward. So that would be kind of my key summaries and takeaways here. But any other final points from you, Ledge?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about it's all about now the individual, not the institution. People want to hear from the individual, so you don't see as many sort of brand accounts, doing outreach and things like that. And I think this vehicle is a great example of that. Like, if you have a podcast, you're having a one-to-one interview. It's a one-to-one discussion and sort of relationship building there. And then you can, again, like when you're doing that, you're Jake doing those things. You're building relationship with Jake and that person, each of whom has a business and maybe could transact some other value there. But that's the one-to-one type of relationship that the podcasting is a great reason to get together and do that. How many virtual coffees can you do now with no purpose? Like, everybody's getting burned out, but this is more fun. It's like it's purposeful. It's maybe like getting a little dressed up, and going out to dinner. Like, there's a reason to do these things. And podcasts, I think, fill a different version, a more grown-up version of just networking for the sake of, hey, let's get together and have another virtual coffee, which, we're all kind of done with right now. So I think this is a great thing to do. And it can become, here's my warning, is it becomes overwhelming if you do too much. So have a system, and we can help you build that system if you're interested. I often have to step back and go back to my almost flow chart of how I'm doing these things and going, who did I touch base with and when? It's very similar to the way you would manage your old tickler file or something like that. Like, I haven't reached out to, contact X in a while, and I'm aware of that. So let me go see what their business is doing, and let's find an article, and that's interesting. And how, when you were on our podcast, you talked about this being your goal 6 months ago. Have you hit the goal? Is there anything we can do to help you with that? So you have just extracted a lot of personal and thoughtful information. You should probably also, have a mechanism in place to use that and intelligently converse, not just, I think people all the time do like impersonal follow-up, and this vehicle wouldn't respond well to that any more than any other would. How many of us really want to get one more impersonal email? We don't. And I don't know. If anything, I think you would agree with this. It's just do the work. Do the work in a solid, good way. After years of doing the work, it will start to pay off for you. And if you're looking for a shortcut, so are all the rest of us. And, so let us know when you find it, because we haven't found it yet. But we do have a thing that when you do work, it will actually work for you.
Yeah, and I think the other key point to hit on that was just, it came up for me when you were talking about all that is, it's just coming down to having expectations and realizing that not everybody is going to convert. Not everybody's going to be a customer, and like, you don't want to try to force it. You don't some people, like, you're going to have a great interview, but they're just not going to be in the right timing, the right buying cycle. Maybe they want a budget. They're just not interested. And even though they may have been kind of what looks like an ideal persona or an ideal partner, just not every interview is going to work out, just like every sales call doesn't work out. And so it's just recognizing that, if you do, it's a numbers game. And if you've got a high ticket sale, what we typically see is about like 10% of these end up converting into some sort of revenue relationship if you're treating this well. And so just recognizing that, if you're batting 1 for 10 out of these, and you've got a high ticket sale, then it's like still going to be great in generating like phenomenal revenue for your business. So
yeah,
I think that's the other thing.
It's just an equation. Yeah, it's just straight up math. I would be so bold as to say we invented this, right? And we are not achieving greater than 10% guest to revenue conversion, as much as I would like to do so. So I think that number stands, and it goes back to combine what we've done 300-400 podcast episodes and appearances, between us. And I think we have a reasonable calculation of, some $1.5 million of attributable revenue over the course of doing that. Nothing to sneeze at. That's something to be proud of for any marketing channel. But did 400 conversions come from that? No. And I think people need to understand that, maybe 40, 50, we're maybe trending above 10% there. But that's the game. in the exact same way that you must have a ton of different touch points and conversations, show me the funnel where somebody pours 100 leads in and gets 100 sales. Because, yeah, I want that too, but that isn't going to happen, and this is exactly the same thing. So I think what this vehicle provides you is a chance to have conversations that are meaningful, that potentially tip to a higher conversion rate at certain points in the funnel. And that's all we can do, right? Try to load the dice, make the game work in the house's favor. That's marketing. But ultimately, just have more conversations, have the best conversations you have the conversations with the right people. And when the timing goes in your favor, some of those will convert. And so our argument is it's better to have 50 of the exact right conversations with the exact right people and have 5 of those convert for a high ticket value. That's good math. And it more than pays, for itself. Turn on your other marketing channels and start to, sort of reap the benefits of that enhanced content, enhanced networking, and all the other benefits that you thought you were getting from podcast. We're just looping that all together in a nice, affordable package.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on here, Ledge. Good stuff here. And if anyone's got any other further questions, wants to hear more about us, just head over to contentallies.com where you can learn how we do this entire podcasting approach for you. So thanks for taking the time to listen, and we'll see you guys next time.